Hello all, I'm here to talk about the final step of the electronic prior authorization. The final step of the electronic prior authorization is called prior authorization support. What does that mean for you and me? It means when I submit an authorization request, how do I get that one approved? That's what it means. So what happens is the provider can probably submit, this is the final step, as I said before, the provider would be able to bundle out all the questionnaire response, all the documentation that they have accrued, and everything into a bundle of file resources, and they would be submitting it to the payer so that a decision can be made on the prior authorization request. In USA, the HIPAA law requires every healthcare financial transaction to be transacted in the Hex 12 format. So that means if you are submitting a bundle of information in file resources to a payer for a decision to be made, then those transactions has to be converted into an X12 format. However, Medicare does enable payers to obtain a waiver, meaning the payers can go ahead and say, we are equipped to handle the file transactions, so we do not need the transactions to come to us in an X12 format. But there is a caveat attached to it. In order for the payers to go ahead and obtain that waiver, they have to prove to the Medicare saying that they are equipped and their success rate in handling these file transactions are equivalent or better than receiving the X12 transactions. And that needs to be submitted as a proof for the waiver to be obtained by the payers. And the payer system is also expected to immediately generate an automated response to a prior authorization request. Ideally, this is the final decision for the prior authorization submitted by the provider. However, there are going to be situations where after all the documentation is attached, after all the questionnaires being responded back, there could be situations where the payer would not be able to make a decision on the authorization request that has been submitted. In that case, the status of that prior authorization response can be pended. In other cases where they have obtained all the documentation and they can make a decision, there should be a decision made by the payer and submitted back to the provider in an X12 format or in a direct file response back to the provider. This concludes the whole prior authorization three-step process. So like I said, the final step is the one that says the prior authorization support. It is a compilation of all the bundle of resources that the providers will be submitting back to the payers to arrive at a decision. The payers can obtain a waiver for the documentation to come back in the file resources and not to be in X12 format. And for the decisions that the payer cannot come to a conclusion, they can respond back to the provider saying that this prior authorization is pending, and then a further review needs to be obtained on that one. So thank you all.